Hey, Mike, what do Kelly Slater and PT have in common?
I don't know. They're both world champs?
Nope, they both own Endless Summer box set.
Oh my God, rad. You guys, you can get it too. The link's in the show notes.
Racks on a surf, dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Quivercast, where we chat with surfers from all around the world, from all walks of life, and we get their story. Find us at www.thequivercast.com. I am Mike, your host. Let's get into the show. Everybody, stoked. We got Toby Martin on the show, former pro surfer. Toby, where do you live right now, currently?
I am on the northern beaches in the beach suburb of DY, sort of where I grew up. So I've had a little journey going around the northern beaches, always lived here 49 years. 17 of those largely on the road, being a professional surfer and commentator and being involved with surf events and the ocean and traveling. So yeah, it's nice to come back to we call DY the hood. So
do you?
We're back in the hood. Okay,
cool. So is DY the same as it always has been, or has it changed?
Oh, look, we've gone through, like everywhere else in the world, a radical change. The amount of people, new buildings, dwellings. It was an interesting journey traveling around the world, going to all these places. I remember going to Margaret River in my early 20s. You could have bought an acre lot down there for $100,000. It was a quiet little sleepy village, and then that exploded. We went to, going back to Jeffreys Bay each year. You'd come down the hill of Port Elizabeth into the bay, and each year the lights just got bigger and more into the landscape, seeing surfing exploding in Europe, in France, the Learn to Surf schools. So, yeah, it's been a pretty wild ride worldwide to see where surfing's gone, how many people have adapted to it. But, yeah, my hometown obviously has gone through a lot of changes, a lot more people in the water and a lot more girls, which is great. Just reducing that testosterone level, and they usually wash their hair, so there's normally a better scent coming through the lineup. Instead of the old wetsuit smell.
Yes. Stinky old guys, a better smell. You're right. That's interesting. Why do you think all these places in the world, all these beach communities have changed? Is it partially because of surfing or the beach lifestyle? Or
it was funny. It's everyone's sort of cottoned on to what we're doing as surfers. I remember I'm just about to go off to Bali. We used to go to this really quiet little place called Canggu, which no one knew about.
Mm-hmm.
And now everyone goes there. They've got big nightclubs on the beach. And we used to stay there because it was out of the way. You'd be away from Seminyak. You'd be away from Ulus. You could sort of get on the motor scooter for 20 minutes and be back in Seminyak. And now it's like the hipster central.
Wow.
I didn't even recognize the place when I went back, but everyone's sort of cottoned on to our deal as surfers. I mean, Uluwatu used to just be raw cliffs, and everyone's got that vibe. So, I don't know, everyone wants a piece of the surfing community, which is understandable when you look at our lifestyle, being involved in the ocean, the great elixir of life. Hard not to.
Yeah. If I still look around, though, a lot of people that live near the beach don't utilize the beach like us surfers.
Yeah, we should make some sort of rule, shouldn't we? That if you live near the beach, you've got to use it. Otherwise, you forego that right.
That would be the best rule ever.
Off you go, mate.
I don't think it'll fly.
Back out to the plains.
Oh, that's funny. Right on. So how did you start surfing? How did you get into it?
Well, I was like any kid growing up in Australia, right into all my sports, many disciplines. I was playing cricket in summer, soccer and rugby league in winter. Anything I could get involved in, sports-wise, I just jumped at the chance. As I sort of got into my early, teen years, sitting out in the hot summer, waiting for the ball to come to me, wasn't as engaging as being in the ocean. And that love of the ocean, my dad introduced me to the ocean. He'd do a beach run after work down at Curl Beach. I'd do the run with him, and then I started bodyboarding in the corner. So that love of the ocean just started to click in. He was very big on ocean swims and beach lifestyle, and it's probably the greatest gift you can give someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just the origins of being involved, firstly with my father, and then finding a love of the ocean. And then, like anyone, once you start to get that connection with the ocean, that sort of superseded every other sport. It just sort of, every other sport started to dwindle away, and surfing and that beach lifestyle became the focus.
So when you were out bodyboarding before you got into stand-up surfing, did you have your buddies out there, or were you by yourself?
I remember just doing it by myself initially. And the funny thing is, I'd have the leg rope on. I never really bodyboarded. I just got straight up, and I was standing up and using the arm rope as like pulling the nose out, because those, short little bodyboards would just plow straight in and nosedive. So I used to just jumping straight up and using the arm rope as leverage to keep the nose out of the water. But there was some sort of connection there. Most people can remember their first wave. I can't really. I just remember that connection with the ocean and the enjoyment I got out of it, the future challenges. It just superseded everything else that was going on in my life in the sporting world. I just felt that sense of connection to the ocean.
How old are you at this point with the bodyboard and stuff?
How old am I? I started kind of late. I guess I was like 10 or 11.
Okay. Probably not late back then, but maybe late in today's.
Well, you look at these kids, there's child prodigies coming through it. There's this hot guy coming
all
through.
the
I'm
time.
like, oh yeah, how old is he? Oh, he's 8. Oh, righto. Your career's done by the time you're 15.
Yes.
But I was kind of a late bloomer, being introduced to the ocean at 10 or 12. Like I said, for me, growing up, I was soccer, cricket, rugby league, and our house was a little bit back from the beach, but you could see the beach. So that connection was always going to be there. In saying that, I've got 2 older sisters that don't really go to the beach too much. So I think there's a calling for us, those that love the beach, and it's become ever more popular with females, with the new demographic of people having that connection, that lifestyle. We just see all the healthy qualities associated with the ocean, and it's such a great equalizer. It keeps you honest. If you're struggling with your fitness, the ocean is the first test for you. Like, okay, I better not
100%.
be swimming out when it's 6 to 8 foot. I need to do a bit more preparation. It's the beauty and the beast. So I actually we did a rescue right down here at DY Beach the other day, and it's just a timely reminder that even when it's small, it was 2 feet, the ocean can have its way with you. So you've got to be prepared.
100%. Scary. I mean, you don't mess with the ocean. Mother Nature will always win.
And you see that in Hawaii. When we're over at Hawaii, they're like, watch out for the waves. And everyone's there watching the surf. And, the big story comes up and wipes out kids, dogs, cameras, Got to be ready.
You start progressing as you're getting older at DY. How's the lineup at DY? How are the other surfers? How are they accepting?
Background on DY, it was quite, I guess, notorious back in the day. It was a pretty tough place to grow up. A lot of people from broken homes. That sort of surfing counterculture, which was experienced a lot in America, your Santa Cruz, and lots of places where it was sort of bucking the trend. And we had quite a vibrant surf community. The early photos out of DY, we used to have professional events in the 70s. We had a great photographer here, Peter Crawford. We had world-renowned surfers come down, Michael Peterson, Mark Richards. So we had this really great exposure. I wasn't privy to all that. I sort of came on later, and my education of surfing sort of picked up from there. Doug Andrews was the second surfer ever to win bells. He was a DY guy. We had Midget Farrelly, who established our board riding club in 1961, which is one of the oldest in Australia. These are all things I started to learn later when my career progressed, and I was very lucky that when I came through, I had some really good mentors that walked the path before me. A guy called Garth Dickinson, who is an older statesman. He started doing well in professional events. And then there was this young upstart guy called Shane Herring, who went on to be one of the best enigmatic surfers of all time to rival Kelly Slater and have that,
Yes.
beautiful power base with an aerial act. Yeah, Kelly obviously went on with it, but Shane's shooting star certainly burned bright. And I was lucky that, I didn't even know about professional surfing or really anything. I just loved the beach. I loved going down there, having a surf and just trying to hone my skills. And it was Shane Herring who actually said, I saw you out there surfing. We have a comp, and if you're in the comp, you would have beat my brother, Shane's younger brother, Brett. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. And he goes, well, we're here next month. Come down. And then in my first event, I got second. So it was a good taste of success and go, okay, well, yeah, I didn't know about all this, competitive surfing, but I was competitive by nature, and that sort of progressed, organically in a way.
How much older is Shane than you?
Shane's just a year older. But he was much more advanced, growing up down at the beach at DY, and I was sort of like, I guess you call it hills, but it's not really. I'm sort of 10 minutes back from the beach, not living right on the beach, which was a bit of a thing for, are you a local? I mean, you live on the west side, you're 10 minutes away, and it's like, well, my house overlooks the beach. What more do you want? I mean,
okay.
But, it's the testing ground as kids, you got to forge your way through. You got to put your stake in the ground, and as being one of the older statesmen, you want to see people respect the lineup and push themselves in there and appreciate the older guys that are around to give you guidance.
Did they treat you different because you're 10 minutes back?
Absolutely, mate. DY was a tough place to grow up. If you look at some of the history, man, it was that booming 70s culture that came through and swept through, most surfing towns. You've got extreme characters. You've got, the influence of drugs at that time. It did a lot of damage to our beach, the hard drugs. I mean, the world was a hard place in the 70s, and you had to have a hard edge. And you look at some of the battles between, MP and Rabbit and PT and all our founding forefathers in surfing. It was gnarly. Like, they tried to kill each other on a daily basis. Like, there was not the respect or the niceties now, like, between Mick Fanning, Joel Parkinson, Kelly. They were out there to kill each other and do absolutely anything they could to distract them, put them off, run them over. So it's a pretty tough place, and DY was notorious for that, having that hard edge. We had a challenging point break, which separated the men from the boys. But yeah, it wasn't easy. If you wanted a wave as a grommet out there, you had to cop some sprays, you had to chip away at the lineup. One of the older statesmen at our beach, Brad Wybrew, he goes, "Get out of my way, grommet." And I remember just waiting for him to cut off a wave at the end so I could take it. And he just sort of started to creep out the lineup a little bit further. And like anywhere, if you start making a few waves, the older guys go, okay, he's sort of earned his spot. He can go this one and they give you a few more waves in between when they're tired.
Did it ever get violent?
Oh yeah, it was pretty gnarly.
Really?
It was an aggressive beach culture of, it was a battleground.
Okay. Wow.
And a battleground within itself, and then, God forbid, anyone else come into our battleground, then there'd be that great unification of, hang on, we can beat each other up, but you can't. And then, and as a team, I mean, some of the old guys, their stories to go and watch surf movies from DY, they'd get on the bus, they'd go down to Manly, they'd have to fight the Manly guys, they'd get the ferry into town, then they'd fight the town guys, they'd watch the movie, they'd come back, they'd fight the town guys, get on the ferry, come home, fight the Manly guys, and finally get home. That was like their night out to watch a surf movie, you just,
oh my gosh,
unfathomable this day to think what they went through. But great stories back in that day, that carefree lifestyle and nature, and it's something that we still endear ourselves to, right? That carefree attitude. You could work for 3 months and then, go to Bali, Indo, Queensland for 9 months. But certainly the landscape's changed in that sense. But the great stories from that time period are some that we'll always cling to. And great to sort of grow up, not right in the midst of it, but just to the side.
Okay, good, perfect. When Shane was talking to you and you entered that event that he told you to, and you got second. How'd you feel?
Oh, a great sense of achievement. I really didn't have any assessment of my own skill level because I was doing these other sports. So surfing was just sort of my getaway. It was something that I really liked doing. I'd never really looked at it as a competitive pursuit until Shane sort of said, "Hey, you're surfing really well. There's a contest." I just didn't put two and two together. That if you went to the beach, then you could sort of test your skills against everyone else. I just wanted to improve and get better, and that was a real eye opener for me to go, okay, well, it just felt really organic as well. Like I didn't chase competitive surfing; it sort of just got put in front of me, and I went, okay, well, I'll have a crack at that, and that was in my competitive nature. But I was like, okay, well, if I got second in this one. And success always breeds opportunity. So if you're good at something, you keep going with it. And vice versa. If you find something challenging, then you love it. You also want to adapt, which I was probably a slow learner in that sense. It took me a long while to want to put myself in other situations competitively on a national stage. The guys, again, were pushing me to go, hey, your skill level's up there. You should go and compete in the Pro Junior. And I said, look, I don't want to go in there and fail. I don't think I'm ready. And as we know, failing's part of your journey of growth. And I was just so reluctant to put myself out there. And then once I did, it was like opening the big can. It was like, okay, what other challenge can I go? Like, we're talking about this Australia Pro Junior thing. What about a world stage? And do I want to just be a good guy in Australia? Because there was lots of guys around my age that were already very well known in the surfing industry that were just happy being in Australia. And I said, hang on, if we're going to do this thing, like, where can I go? Like, what's the world got to offer? And I remember buying my first world ticket and going to these events. Started off in Margaret River, and the boys were like, how did you get to go there? And I was like, it's pretty simple. Like, booked my ticket, entered the event, everyone's like, oh, you've got to beat a certain level. I was just like, I'm going. I'm just going to go, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to test myself. I remember Shane Herring actually going away to America on the Bud Pro Tour, and he was away for 3 months. And in that 3 months, he came back, and I reckon he was 3,000% better. And I went,
wow,
whatever he just did in that 3 months, I've got to do. And that sort of also catapulted my journey to go, okay, you can be on the road, you're learning. I'd never seen improvement like that with someone's skills.
So I have to ask you this. What was your relationship with Shane? Was it just beach friendly, or were you guys like hanging out after surfing?
He was sort of older, so there was the older sort of cooler crew. But I was right there when he had his greatest success. We were at the Coke Classic when he had that famous final with Kelly Slater. So I was hanging out with Brett, who was a year or so younger than me, and Shane was a year older, but we were all sort of out there surfing the point, and we were at their place in DY there, just a tiny 2-bedroom unit with his mum Sandra, and we sort of started to map out, which I hadn't thought about before. He's like, well, Kelly's on the other side of the draw. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, me and Kelly could match up, and if we match up, it's going to be in the final. And I was like, I had no understanding of all that. And he just grabbed our suburb. He grabbed everyone's attention in Australia and worldwide, actually, to take on, this was when Kelly's in black and white, and we're all sitting around the surf shop watching black and white just on high rotation, loop after loop, and like, oh my God. And you got people like Elko going, who's this young kid? And, little upstart, he's nothing. I'm going to rip him apart. And Tom Carroll's traveling with him, dropping in on him. And we've got this guy from our beach that's going toe for toe for him. So he really lifted up our suburb and captured the world attention. So I was pretty lucky to see, like, his journey, that he was just a normal guy. But if you apply yourself at the highest level, you can do some pretty special things. So, I mean, Shane's surfing now is still, you go back and watch his footage, and it's still mind-blowing. Like, some of the stuff on the Weber boards, and, his rail game is just phenomenal. And I love all that style of surfing. And he had a real aerial game as well, which I didn't have. I tried to be more of a power kind of base. But yeah, pretty phenomenal ride for all of us. And I was sort of the guy that didn't have too much talent. I just wanted to see how far I could go with it.
It's a big world when you start traveling in it, right? You're seeing other guys that you don't see every day.
You know, I had this challenging right-hand point break at DY. We rolled up at Chopu. I've never even gone left, like on a barreling wave like that. It's like a nightmare, you know. You're going to this place and the chickens are going off at 3:00. You don't sleep that well anyway. What is going on with this ocean? It's going below sea level. And I'm talking to, like, you know, Brendan Margison going, you know, he's like, I haven't seen anything like this place either. And I said, well, I just watched you in Bunyip jamming. You're pulling in 8-foot barrels at Nalu. Like, surely this is. And he's like, this is freaking me out, mate. I don't know what's going on here.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, places like that sort of ended a few careers. And that was the step up. Obviously, going to Hawaii is a real step up for you. But introducing these new slab critical waves, I was just like, okay, this is a game changer.
What do you mean ending careers? Like guys like just quitting because it was so heavy?
I think that was where John Schmucker retired when we went to Chopu. We went, I'm done. Like, that really intimidated a lot of people. Like,
wow.
You know, we had those classic stories of Reno Abalero and those guys and Rob Bain getting caught inside Waimea. And that time period, and we sort of went away from that. We went to the bums on seats, you know, the Huntingtons, surfing Miyazaki, Japan. We went all to these bums on seats. And
is this the time when they stopped ending it in Hawaii and they were doing like Manly Beach and?
Yeah, so we went through all that. Yeah, exactly. Like that. I think that was 92 where they went, hang on, we need, like, you know, the bums
crowds.
on seats. We need to be a stadium sport. And as we know, surfing's anything but a stadium sport. And then Rabbit had a pretty heavy involvement with, we need the best surfers in the best waves. And that was just totally different from what I was doing on the world qualifying system, you know, surfing in Surrouts and Huntington and, you know, all these small wave spots. It was like, oh, okay, here we go. This is balls to the wall. Your life is on the line. If the first year we got there, someone had died in a couple of days, got sucked over the falls backwards, and you know, waves of consequence, which was so gnarly. And I think it really did catapult our sport into that next level. When you look at, you know, the three big ones, obviously Hawaii Pipeline is the ultimate test. It's a brutal place. It's hard to get a wave, but then we saw that classic stuff from Fiji, and then, you know, I was right there at essentially the unearthing of Chopu, like the Black Pearl Pro, and you know, Kobe Abbottson putting on that display, beating Conan Hayes, and we just hadn't seen anything like that. And then obviously that coincided with Andy Irons' rise. We're like, who is this kid? You know, he'd won a couple of H-packs in Hawaii, and then he came to Chopu like it was 3-foot Rocky Point or 3-foot Oceanside or whatever. We just no hand drags. We're like, what is this guy doing? He's he was so far out there. And then you look at the waves that he sort of grew up on, and you're like, okay, I can sort of piece it together. But I mean, how good for surfing, how good for everyone to watch guys just going balls to the wall and putting your life on the line. It was awesome. And that's what we want as surfers. We want those great experiences, and there's no probably greater experience in my life than getting spat out of a big Chopu barrel. You got the mountains there. It's like the Garden of Eden, and how quick you're going. It was like looking down the Eiffel Tower trying to get into these waves, and you've got this razor sharp reef. It was just mind bending. It was mind blowing, and it was so hard to process it all. But everyone was just pushing so hard to conquer this new challenge that came up. So, you know, when we went to the nicer places like J Bay, that was, you know, a lot more user friendly, more challenging in terms of skill level. But I mean, what a wild ride it was from that period, just to unlock these waves and go.
Do you remember your first session out there?
I don't know if it was my very first session, but I'm kind of glad I went there before all the hype. It wasn't like Tom Carroll had been there on a trip, and I said, there's this event in Tahiti. Do you know anything about it? And he goes, take your pipeline boards. It's going to be, and I was like, really? I'd seen like there was that, a few people had done the trip there. Poto had snuck a few guys into this secret wave down at the end of the road, but it wasn't plastered everywhere like it was. And I think the first day I got there, I was like, it wasn't great chopu. It was messy. And yeah, I just remember, I'm not even sure if I made the quarters there, but the first day I sort of surfed it, I really didn't think it was much of a wave. Like I didn't know how they were taking off so late and deep. Yeah, that was a real mind bender for me to try and overcome your fear and then to try and adapt so quickly, which we kind of had to do at Pipe. You don't get any free waves at Pipe. You got to crawl over 300 people to get a wave out there. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the ultimate challenges, and that's what all the fans love to see, how you respond. I mean, I remember watching Travis Logie surf out there, and I just had a really good heat and won my heat. And Travis Logie had like the fear of God in him. He was shaking. It was 8-foot chopu. He's like, what do? You just had a great heat. And I'm like, hang on, mate. That's all you got to do is hang on. He's like, I don't know if I can do this. And then, Trav was such a great surfer in small waves. So that Machado type guy that was electric in small waves and really good.
Yeah.
Next thing I hear, Travis Logie, 9-point ride, just got spat out of this, gaping barrel. Just his competitive nature came out. He smashed Phil McDonald in that heat. And I was like, see, Trav, it's not that hard. But you get these guys that are competitive that overcome that fear in that place, which we all do when you go there. Each time it's, you think about past experiences going there, and it's like jumping in an ice bath. It never gets easy.
Okay.
Surfing never gets easy. Like first thing in the morning, you're dropping down Eiffel Tower looking, walls. Just, okay, this is what I do first thing in the morning. It's pretty crazy.
Okay. Wow, that's insane. I love your description of it. You work your way up, you do the nationals, Australian nationals, and you get on the CT. It was called the CT back then too, right?
Called the CT,
and it was ASP. Yeah.
So that was so I qualified in 2000. So when the world was going to, explode because we were changing over the millennial. Occy was the world champ, and what a comeback. And I mean, we look at that time period, the generation before mine, the forefathers, that era of establishing pro surfing in 76 to sort of the early 80s. What a cast of characters. But then it sort of went next level when that tour around that, obviously the introduction of Kelly, Occy still being there, Sonny Garcia, Luke Egan, all these guys that had experienced the generation before of all these gnarly competitors, your Martin Potters and all these firebrand guys. Then our sort of generation went, okay, we're going to use all that firebrand, but we're also going to up that skill level. And Kelly was sort of obviously the leader in that. And I look back at that time period now and just, I don't know if it's going to be matched. We've got some great people there at the moment, John Florence and Gabe Medina and all these guys pushing to be 1 and 2. But having that Andy Kelly rivalry while we're on tour was just, it was something else. It was King Kelly, and no one had really got under his skin and lifted everyone's performance. Then, Andy Irons came on tour, and the first year didn't qualify. That's, with all that skill level, as great as Andy is, and he's on the wall behind me, I just, it was always good when Andy won. There'd always be a party or something going on with Andy. But for him to hone his skills and then take on Kelly and, everyone pushing so hard around that time period, it was just, it's unbelievable.
Was there like deep rivalries? Was there hatred among certain surfers? There
was people. I distinctly remember, and Kelly would attest to this, that he'd had, I think, 6 world titles or so at that stage.
Yeah, he's already.
People were just over the whole Kelly thing, like, mate, retire. How many world titles do you need?
Right.
You know, we're sick of you winning. There was this really sort of anti-Kelly sentiment. And it seems like a lifetime ago with 6 world titles, you know, he equaled MRs and then broke it. And everyone pretty much, I know all the Aussies had a gutful of him winning. There was this real pushback against Kelly, but he was doing so much good things for the sport. He was making careers for everyone. Surfing was booming. There always is going to be those integrated rivals, but there was nothing like, you know, when Andy stepped up to Kelly, that was a whole different game of being involved in that. And I think it was, what year are we? Japan. So I made the semis in Japan in 2004, I think it was.
Okay.
And that was the height of Kelly's going for his 7th world title, his unprecedented 7th world title. And it was the rise of Andy Irons, and he'd got the rising sun on the bottom of his board, and he wanted to Kelly's pretty little picture into pieces. And Kelly really didn't have that sort of combativeness against anyone else except Andy. You know, he had that rivalry with Beshan, he had that rivalry with Sonny, he had that rivalry with Ockie, you know, all these other guys before, Martin Potter, Tom Carroll. But Andy was the one guy that just got under his skin, said, mate, when you come to Hawaii, you're on my turf. And Kelly really hadn't faced anything like that. I mean, it was always a challenge for us. But again, looking back at that time period, there was, you know, 44 surfers, but, you know, just such amazing quality of athletes and people that had been on journeys. Like Shane Besham was still there. Rob Bain was still doing the tour when I started to cut my teeth. And then to throw in all those new places that we were going, you know, the Dream Tour. That was sort of next level.
Were you stoked when they changed the venues? Were you happy, or did you like the beach breaks?
I was pretty comfortable. It took me 5 years to qualify, and I was pretty comfortable. You know, you rock up to the beach, you know exactly when you're surfing. I hadn't had any wild cards. I didn't have like major support to try and get on tour. It was just my dogged determination that I remember having this chat with Perry Hatchett. I said, see my face? And he goes, yeah. And I go, I'll get used to it. I said, I'm not going away till I make this tour. I'm telling you that. You're just going to see me for the next 10, however long it takes. I'm going to keep turning up. And he's like, all right. Well, if you want to do that, you might want to adjust your surfing. You're drawing your lines out too much. You need to be attacking more. And, you know, we had some running battles there because I really didn't have that skill level, but I knew I needed to work on it, and I just needed to be persistent. When that Dream Tour came around coming from the qualifying system where you could rock up the beach and you go, my heat's in at 10:30, they pretty much were going to run you regardless to get on the Dream Tour, where we had a 10-day waiting period, and the surf could be pumping. Like, I hadn't seen anything like that on the qualifying series. I'm like, it's pumping, and the QS would be surfing this, and they're like, no, it's going to be better tomorrow. It was a real adjustment. Trying to wait to have your performance was a real mindset, being on the elite tour. The other thing was, you know, we're a pretty friendly surfing fraternity bunch of guys, everyone wanting to see you get to the tour. I tell you what, once you're there's a different look with people. They eyeball you like, you're not taking my job.
Yes.
You know, you're having these head-to-head battles. I mean, I was staying with Jake Patterson in Brazil. At the start of the heat, he paddled over the top of me. I got an interference. Staying in the same hotel together. We're meant to be mates. I'm up at 2 a.m, just outside his door, just thinking of ways to wring his neck, you know. And I'm like, if we're meant to be mates and you're just fly all the way here and you're just going to paddle around the top of me. He goes, well, I thought you were looking left. I was like, mate, I had the worst sleep. I was out your bed, out your room, out the front of your room at 2 o'clock in the morning. He goes, I know, I could hear you out there. You know, but there's things like that you've got to get over them pretty quick. We were traveling together, surfing together. You've got this animosity against someone, and then you're on the plane sitting next to them for 12 hours. You're like, oh, am I just going to be eggy for 12 hours? Or am I just going to go, righto, I got to let this go and I got to get on with it. Next time I got to be better. There's certain guys that you started to understand how they operated in a heat, like Kalani Robb would talk to you the whole heat and try and, have this conversation with you. And Mick Fanning's out there like the Iceman had just looked through and wouldn't engage with you or talk to you. And Kelly's out there and likes to have a bit of a conversation. And, there's all these other mindset, and you've got to be so confident within yourself about how to play the game. It's not just surfing and, be on top of that situation. But, yeah, just so many wild stories that
what was your strategy, Toby?
My strategy developed. Your strategy develops over time. Is when you get on tour, you're in shock, and you're just trying to work out if you belong there. You've got experienced campaigners that just go through the motion, and like I said, there's different ways. Some people will talk to you in a heat. If you're getting killed, you're like, oh well. You're trying to change the momentum, but my strategy was I sort of adapted into that. Well, I've got nothing to lose kind of role.
Okay.
I like to put on some early pressure that, well, you're this famous person and you're really good at your job, so the pressure's sort of all on you. I had a great battle with Andy Irons in the quarters down at Bell's, and we're paddling out for our heat. And we're sort of, arm in arm. I've got the inside track, paddling out there at Southside. And Andy's sort of getting into a bit of dialogue with me and, what are you effing doing? And I said, look, Andy, man, you got a lot of things in your life. You're 3 times world champion. You've won all these events. Mate, you got everything you could ever want. But I said, there's one thing you're not going to have, and that's the inside. I said, I'll paddle the Tasmanian back. You've got all these things, but you are not having the inside. And we got so far out of track. And I was just like,
oh, yeah.
If it came down to surfing skill level, Andy's going to beat you. So you got to work out ways to sort of beat these guys.
Strategy.
And I was just happy if we had have sat in the channel for 20 minutes and I had a snuck across and got 2 waves to get the win and move to the semis, I would have done it. And Andy finally realised, hey, this guy's just taking me off my game.
Yeah.
Got back into the lineup. He ended up beating me as he did a couple of times. But, yeah, I wasn't giving up that inside. And, I drew him into the dogfight, which was against all his natural skills. So you develop with certain guys, different strategies and different ways to try and win a heat. You'd paddle out the bottom and try and give them the lineup so you could get an early lead and establish pressure. And it developed different strategies for different guys for sure. And then, you surf against someone like Sonny and you pretty much just had to stay out of the way, just stay out of the firing line. It was kind of like ammunition would have just flown everywhere and you're trying to get on with your job without upsetting the line in the cage because he'd rip you apart.
Did you have any like your fellow competitors or friends that would give you advice like before heat, or you guys would talk out a strategy?
Yeah, for us, Jake Patterson was really good. Growing up, I travelled with Jake and Richie Lovett on our domestic circuit. They were quite
cool,
proficient and well known, but Jake's fondly known to most Australians as the Godfather.
Yes.
Just had that never say die attitude. And I think Flavio Paterats said he's got a really good thing about Jake Patterson. He said his nickname is the Snake, and he goes, Jake takes the candy from the baby. And that means like you think you've got a heat win against Jake and he just snatches it away from you. Jake was really good for us in, just having that come on sort of attitude, giving us guidance around boards, traveling, fitness, leading the way in preparation. Like, don't come down to the beach and lose your heat that you broke your leg rope, that your wax wasn't right, that you didn't have a backup board, fins, equipment. All of that should be taken care of, that it's just your performance, which you can improve, and heat strategies. And I mean, Jake obviously went on to be or have a great career and be a great coach, but for
elite coach,
traveling Australian surfers and internationals, international surfers, he was a great sounding board for a lot of people, and he had some great success against Kelly as well. And got those back-to-back Jeffreys Bay wins. He won at Sunset when the sort of all this stuff was happening with the World Tour in Hawaii, and pushed back against us having so many allocations to surf their best waves. And it was the Wild West, and Jake sort of stood up to all that, and we sort of went under his tutelage a lot of the time.
Oh, that's awesome. You get on tour after 5 years, and you stay on that for 7 years. Were you battling, was every heat death?
Not so much death every heat. It was death. You knew when death rolled around, like Chopu, Fiji, that 1 year was just outrageous. Death always sort of knocks on the door at Hawaii, at Pipeline. And then there was like the fun events. You'd have Jeffreys Bay, you'd have the Gold Coast, where it was kind of like the circus. Everyone's in boardies. It's the start of the year. Going to Brazil, you had 10, 15,000 people on the beach. Surfing against the guys over there was just like, it's probably as close to stadium surfing as surfing gets. Surfing over there, they're so passionate. It's, they really get behind their local surfers. You really know your back's against the wall when you go to somewhere like Brazil, and you can stand up, and the place is fraught with danger outside of the event.
I've heard.
You got to, you're pushing the boundaries, and especially if you get in the heat with one of the Brazilian guys there, and they're so passionate, but they just love surfing as well, which is really cool. But you just had to be true to yourself in any situation. Like, you worked your ass off to get there, and you're certainly not going to back down in any situation. But sometimes you had to manage things a bit better. Like, you're not going to paddle over the top of Sonny because he's going to whack you. Like, that's just the way it is. And you got to dance around that and not upset him. You got to not sort of paddle inside Neko Padarats when you're at Rio in front of 20,000 people who, could get a bit too excited with their passion on you. And, Neko's stomping around the area anyway. And, some great experiences, but we all bonded together. I mean, we all knew how hard it was to get onto tour, and we'd battle and fight each other, but there was that common ground of respect that we're doing something pretty cool, and we're getting paid to go surfing. Like, how cool.
Yeah. Did it ever turn into a job? Did you ever lose that passion?
It was a job a couple of times. When you're doing the outside work, when you're doing, let's just say you're at the Quicksilver Pro, you're doing shop signings, you're going to malls, and you're like, I should just be at the beach. When you're doing things like pulling into closeouts to get a shot in the new board short range, which is part of your job, but you're like, I remember doing this one session with Tim Jones, and Snapper and Kira were firing, and we needed to get a product shoot for Fox for the new board shorts. They were going into surfing. We're like, we need the shot in the board shorts. And me and Tim Jones went out this place called Froggies, and it was, half a foot deep. It was 4 foot, just full breakneck. I was probably going to break some of my boards going out there. There's a high chance I could have got injured. And I'm like, Kira's pumping. And Jonesy's like, yeah, mate, I'm going to probably see you once in 2 hours. That's not our job today. We're going out of Froggies. We're going to pull in the 20 closeouts. We're going to get the shot, and then you can go and do whatever. And I'm like, great. I'm going to break 3 boards. I could possibly get injured. Okay, we just got to do this. This is part of a job. That's,
wow.
One of the times that surfing felt like work. When you're traveling to places that you didn't typically want to go, that felt like work, but you had to, some people had a really hard time with Brazil, which is a challenge for most people going there. It's a challenge. It's fundamentally hard. It's the landscape's challenging, the environment's challenging, safety's an issue. But you'd be on the plane with 40 guys going there, and 20 didn't want to be on the plane. And I went, okay, well, I can either go, I'm going to be eggy about going there, or, hey, 20 guys don't want to be here. Here's my opportunity. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to take this on. I'm going to love the ham cheese leg. I'm going to love acai. I'm going to love that everything that comes at me there. I'm going to love it. And then I reckon I've got these 20 guys covered, and then, I'll try and work on the rest of them.
Okay. That's great. Actually,
you got to have strategy. That mindset and it's a lot of places, like people don't like the cold, or you got to flip that mindset to go, well, a lot of people are going to be distracted here. And I saw that as an opportunity when I didn't have that high skill level. If they're off their game mentally, then I've got to be more on my game and,
Smart.
carpe diem, seize the day.
Yeah. Back home, while you're a pro, away from home, did you have a support? How'd your family and how's the local surfers?
Well, my father was very educational. He was a pilot. My sisters were highly decorated in the education system. She was a biochemist. My other sister was a school teacher, musician, piano player. So I was the castaway. And my dad really didn't understand my pursuit of what I was trying to do. I'd been in Hawaii and he's like, you should stop by the University of Hawaii. You should go. Dad, I'm surfing pipeline. Like, my life's on the line. He's like, yeah, but the university's great. Maybe you could go and do a few courses while you're there. And it was just so far removed from, what I was doing. So I had a challenge within a challenge at my family that they were educational, institutional type people that had a format. And I was just like, I've caught this bolt of lightning and I just got to see where it goes. And that took them a while to get it. I didn't have the big contracts. I didn't have an abundance of money coming in. But I had a dream, and I just remember saying to my dad, I can always go and sit in classes and do all this, but I can only ever be a pro surfer or an athlete once. And I don't want to regret that ever. If I'm not good enough, I want to look at the TV and go, how good are these guys? I don't want to be bitter about it, but I also want to throw everything at it. Like, I can do whatever when I'm 40, but 20 to 35, I need to see where I can go with this. So that was a bit of a process for Dad and Mum and my family and my friends. Everyone down the beach was real supportive. When I got to a certain level, you're in the paper, you're getting some notoriety, and but my family still sort of, it took a bit longer for them to come around. And I remember Dad, he was down there swimming with the guys, and he knew what results I was getting, and I'd done really well. And he's like, yeah, all the guys at the swimming club were saying how good you are. And I was like, yeah, you knew that. And he goes, yeah, but now they're saying it. And, I was like,
that's cool though.
Parents, again, growing up in that era of the 70s and 80s, the bond between, your parents was, go and sit down the beach for 10 hours. Like, you just don't do that with your kids now. And I remember saying to Mum, when I'd had my daughter, like, did you really just let me travel around to Brazil by myself? And she goes, did I have an option? I went, probably not, but I was in Brazil by myself. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to stay. I was, doing all this crazy
Didn't speak
stuff.
the language probably.
Yeah, and they just sort of, he's off as long as he checks in every so often. As a father, as a parent now, I can't imagine doing that, but
Different times.
Different times. You sort of had to go out and get your Christopher Columbus on. You go and explore, and hopefully everything will be okay.
So you said the local lineup was stoked for you. When you paddled out at home, did you get a lot of stoked groms or anything?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it was always good to go home. And again, my story was sort of inspirational, like a guy that probably shouldn't have made the tour, that made the tour. So what I brought back to the beach and to the guys was, if you work hard enough, if you're determined enough, if you pursue whatever you're doing to 100%, there's a good chance you're going to make it. And just to not give up and have that
great words.
Discipline, determination. So that was cool to be able to be sort of someone that didn't have all the hype, that showed him that, to make the world tour it's such a lifetime achievement. It's an impossible undertaking to see, get everything right within a year, to battle everyone that wants to do that job, to make it, to have everything go your way, to overcome adversity, to be on the road for 10 months of a year, to have your sporting career determined by the ocean and how you manage that. And, you can be the best surfer in the world, but if it doesn't break at Huntington for 20 minutes,
you're in trouble.
So you've got to overcome that mindset as well. And it's the more you do it, the more you can understand to try and manage that and negotiate that. And coming back when you've got a level of success was just amazing for the kids. And it was sort of like Shane for me that they can see one of their own. You got 2 arms, 2 legs. You go to the coffee shop like I do. You know, you're not that different, but I'm going to just take a bit of what you got. I'm going to put that into my lifestyle. And I love doing that even today, working with the kids and just showing them that if you apply yourself, you know, you can really take this. You might not be Kelly Slater or Andy Irons, but, you know, you can give them a good shake.
Right. Did you know your career was ending?
Yeah, I battled quite a few injuries. I mean, I was on tour till I was, you know, late into my, when did I end? So 07 was my last year, 06, 07. So I had a pretty good career for ending it, you know, in my early 30s for a guy that wasn't really that good, you know, but you know, like 15, 17 years on the road, traveling, like arduous travel. People think it's easy, but when you're on the road 9 or 10 months, I used to just dream about sleeping in my own bed. I lost early in Japan one year and I came home for 3 days and people were like, aren't you meant to be away? And I was like, your time at home's so valuable. Just putting your clothes back in your wardrobe, going down to the you know, the local RSL, having a schnitzel and a drink and, you know, just these things that you take for granted. When you're on the road, it's not that easy to get a jar of Vegemite. It's not that easy to, you know, get the magazine or whatever it is. A bit different now with the internet, but, you know, we wouldn't get all those things that you were used to at home. And that was especially hard for a lot of the South American guys as well that had that language barrier and, you know, same for us going to France and Europe and you really just needed to adapt. But, yeah, I wouldn't change those experiences for anything. You just learn so much. Your growth curve is just awesome.
What did you plan on after when you're starting to feel like the career's?
I was lucky enough that I got involved in doing some management. So I worked with a shoe company called Etnies and I was the team manager. I started to get involved in broadcasting. I'd always loved broadcasting. So I was doing some commentary at events. Just if I'd be at the event and if I lost early or whatever, I'd go and jump in the commentary booth. I just love the sport. I love being involved in it. I love commentary. When I was growing up, I was out in the front garden playing cricket. I was out there by myself and my mum sticks her head out and she goes, I thought there was a whole group of your mates here. And it was just me. I was the bowler. I was commentating myself bowling. I was commentating myself batting. I was commentating myself fielding. So I had a natural vocation for wanting to try and articulate surfing and everything that we're sort of going through. But yeah, you get to a time period, and especially if you've had injuries, professional sport is not always going to be there. So you try and, you know, some of Dad's old lessons started to come in. You're not always going to be a pro surfer. Now it's getting to that, or an athlete. You're getting to that stage where you've got to develop other skills and what are you good at, which is one of the hard things for any athlete of any sport is to go at the back end of that career. You've put every waking moment of your life into being that person, and then all of a sudden you're not that person. So it's, you wander around for a couple of years just sort of, and I was lucky I had the lead in. If you stay around the event, I was doing some broadcasting, but it probably wasn't, a tangible future for me. So, I sort of tried to work out what else I could be good at. I loved helping people. I loved property design. I thought, well, there's a lot of, unsavory people in real estate and they seem to be going well. If I'm genuine and I like helping people, then that might be a good career path.
That's fine.
But yeah, I still enjoy that today, which is really cool. Just, having a genuine approach in an industry that's not renowned for its, honesty or connection with people. Everyone's just shuffling there trying to do a deal.
Wow.
Genuine approach. And real estate was, it got me on that emotional sense of helping people, of guiding people through a situation. And a lot like surfing, it's probably one of the most emotional experiences that you can do in your life is selling someone's house that they've called their home, where they've raised their kids. You've really got to have this propensity to unearth and pull back the layers of the emotion of I've raised the kids here, and that detachment from that material object onto the journey about where they're going. So it's kind of deep like surfing. So I like that aspect of it, but it's definitely harder than sports. You get a sale done and you're not getting showered in champagne or a check or doing interviews after, your normal business transaction. That's the one thing about sport. There's just that instant gratification. There's that glorification of that moment of your achievement, of the adulation of people. And you look at that, and it's why Kelly's still going. He's just got that connection to people, and it's a hard one to pry yourself away from, for sure.
Wow. Well, let's talk about Kelly. Do you think he's going to retire soon, or do you think he's going to keep going?
Oh, look, he's come out and said he'd love the Paris Olympics, whether he gets
he's looking at the Olympics.
Mate, I love Kelly. I'm one of Kelly's biggest fans. I've surfed with him. I've competed with him. I've seen his journey. The admiration I think all of us have for Kelly, that where he took surfing, the professional nature of his attitude, even exploring new opportunities, doing the Baywatch, which he got a lot of flack for, but opening these new commercial doors for us and establishing surfing in a business world, his dream of, his wave pool and all those things. We owe him as the surfing fraternity, we owe him a lot. His journey, look, he's so good at what he does still. He's still one of the best surfers in the world. Is he one of the best competitive surfers right now in 2023? Probably not. Should he have kept going with the wild card? My personal view is he shouldn't, but you talk to a lot of people, and for how much he's done for the sport, for how much entertainment and the audience he still brings to surfing, he's not going to be there forever. So I guess we've just got to buckle up and enjoy Kelly's ride, the journey that he takes us on. Whether he gets to the Olympics, maybe he should get a wild card. I don't know the criteria for the Olympics, but it'd be a great testimony to an individual that has done so much for surfing that he at least gets a shot there at Chopu in 2024.
How much are you surfing now? Are you still surfing?
I've got it back. So I'm 49, and I've worked out that that old adage, you've got two lives. The second life is when you work out that you've only got one.
I like that.
So just to try and embrace it. I've worked out that I've got, I'm 49. I've probably only got 30 winters left. If I get to the average age is 80, what do I want to do with those 30 years? Okay, I've probably got 5 really good years of pushing my surfing limits. So I've decided to have a year off alcohol. I've lost a whole bunch of weight. I'm putting a lot more back into my fitness, into my health. I've got a daughter who's 8, so I'm going to need to be getting rid of the rascals when she's 18. There was all sorts of synergies going on this year where I sort of started to apply myself. So I'm surfing a lot more. I'd really wanted to challenge myself in big waves. So I've got a 10-foot surfboard. I've got an 8-foot surfboard. I'm ready for the big stuff, and just really enjoy these next 5 years of being re-engaging with the ocean. I've sort of got out of that work is everything, bang, bang, bang. I've had a few things in my life, separation, divorce, restructure of your life, and refocus on your goals. And being in the ocean is, I've got a lifelong love affair with the ocean. It's where I feel most at home. And to re-engage with that and to go back and challenge myself, that's sort of the focus over the next couple of years, Mike. Surfing a lot more, a couple of times a day. If I'm not out there surfing, I'm out there swimming, training.
On your Instagram, it shows from a few months back, I want to say, a big day at local home. How was that day? How many guys were out with you?
Amazing. So that day was about 3 years in the planning. I walk around that headland every day.
Do you want to name the break or no?
It's called Makaha. A lot of people won't find it. There's no signs. And even when the swell was like that, a lot of people, like I tried to grab Nick Carroll. I saw him in the car park, and it was perfect. Like I said, I walk around that headland most days, and I'd been dreaming of this moment where I could go out and sort of really test myself. My body was feeling good. My fitness was good. I had the right equipment. And I was just like, I'm out there. I'm feeling confident. No jet skis. There was no one going to come and save me.
Right.
But I felt confident enough in my own ability that I could get out there. It was 12 to 15 foot. So it's not what, all these crazy lunatics are doing at Mavericks, but it was big for us. And I hadn't surfed 12 to 15 foot in a while. Doing it solo is a whole nother experience.
Yeah.
Like, you've really got to be conscious of, if you commit to that path, that you can handle it whatever comes your way. You break your leg rope, you hurt yourself, you injure yourself, that you're not going to put anyone else in harm's way, that you can get yourself out. And also, once you're out there, I felt a real sense of freedom, Mike. It had been something I'd wanted to do for such a long time, to challenge myself in big waves, to do it by yourself. Out the back, you've got these roaring swells, coming around you. You're trying to duck and weave these sets, which are trying to rip your arms and legs off. And I just felt a real sense of calm. I felt a real sense of energy, of purpose. It was unreal to be able to test yourself and just to encapsulate that experience by yourself. I mean, I rang a couple of mates to say, hey, you working today? Just be there just in case. You can call someone, or, my last will and testament is XYZ. But to be able to do that was just extraordinary. I guess that's one of the things you want to do in your life as a parent, like leave your kids that legacy, that you look down every avenue, you tried everything to the best of your ability. And that day was certainly a highlight. There's still elements I'd like to improve. I probably could have pulled into that one if I had a knife edge, but next one, next swell we're on.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. It looks like, I didn't know if you were out there by yourself, but yeah, it looks like you're out there by yourself.
Well, I saw a friend of mine, Nick Carroll, was in the car park, and you're looking for support. You're like, come out with me. And he's like, no, I'm not going out there. And I'm like, oh, come on, please. It's pumping. And he's like, I'm going to go somewhere else. I was like, okay, you're on this journey alone. You've tried to get some support. Someone might turn up. But then I got to that certain stage where, like I said, it took me 40 minutes to get out there. So it wasn't sort of for everyone. Like, there was one stage I didn't think I was going to get out there. There was so much water moving around. To actually get out the back was an achievement. And then to find a comfort level to start, catching these waves and pushing a few boundaries was,
it's awesome.
It's just this
inspiration, really.
Well, I'd missed the last couple of years, so I wasn't going to miss it again. So it was awesome. I'm stoked to be able to share that with people, and I think the takeaway is that you can, even at 49, you can continue to push your limits, find the best version of you.
Wow, Toby, this is a super fun interview. Went a different direction than I thought we were going, but dude, you're an inspiration. You've done a lot in your life, so stoked.
Yeah, great to be on the Quivercast with you, Mike, have a chat, talk all things surfing, competing, life on the road. Surfing's such a great journey. You never know where that trip to the beach or who you're going to see or where that path's going to take you, but just enjoy every moment of it.
Right on. All right, everybody, this is Mike and Toby Martin. We're out of here. See ya.
100 foot out choke poop. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100 foot out choke poop. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You boo on my didgeridoo. They calling me dude. I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop. She grabbing a hold of my leggy. Play jelly, they Gucci my weddy. The fridge of Giuseppe, the chain is so heavy. She think that I'm charging the Eddie. 100 foot out choke poop. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100 foot out choke poop. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. Surf trap, I'm stacking that money. Cash. 4 shots, a red Ferrari. They start to calling me Dundee. Diamonds a surfing McFlurry. Trap, she want me to teach her to surf. Splash, I'm pulling up, ripping the verse. I'm leaving these kooks in the hearse. They get moved 100 foot on their head, they get work. 100 foot out choke poop. racks on a surf, dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100-foot out chopu. 100 racks on a surf, dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You calling me dude, I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. They calling me dude, I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop.
Hey, you guys, Endless Summer box set. This thing is legit. It's authentic, numbered certificate in it. It has a 5-frame film strip from the original print. You will literally own a piece of history. It has a specially minted bronze medallion. Dude, that thing's sick. Okay, there's so much more here. Go to the show notes. There's a link on there. Go check this piece of history out. This thing's rad. Seriously. Smithsonian American History Museum has it. It took 4 years of research with 3.5 in production, all hand assembled. This thing's rad. So much to this awesome box set. Remastered DVD, sharper images than the original film, but dude, this thing's so sick. Link in the show notes.